Right, today we're going to look at a rifle that I think at the time was years ahead of its era, and indeed even today is still a fascinating rifle. And for the life of me, I can't understand why the particular design of this rifle faded from popularity, and indeed isn't still made in one form or another to this day. So this is a Brittania. It's a Brittania Anglo Sure Shot Mark 1, and it was made by a company called CG Bonehill, who were based in Birmingham. And these ran from a period of manufacture from 1905 to around about 1908, so a comparatively short production run, and like I say, a very, very early air rifle. So 1905 to 1908. This is quite an early one. They didn't make very, very many at all, and this is serial number 400 and where's it gone? 462, and that's marked on most of the major components of this rifle. You can just about make out, I don't know if you can see it, but it's stamped the Brittania, and then it would have had a little sort of Brittania logo like you used to get on the back of the old 1p pieces, and it's got trademark written across there. You can just about see the mark bit. On the lever here we've got the words patent written on the side, and this is a lovely rifle, walnut stocked, and whilst it does bear a passing similarity to the gem style air rifles, this thing is in a totally different league. It's a bit like comparing the old Chinese Lion underleafer from the 80s to a Webley Mark III as regards build quality. It's just they might look the same, but there's just no similarity at all in the actual rifle itself. This is leagues and leagues ahead of the gem, both in build quality, construction, style and design. It's far superior. So let's have a quick run through what we've actually got here. So this is actually a very early Bullpup. The barrel is 21 inches long, which is quite long, same as HW35 Export, which was a raved about barrel. And yet this rifle actually is only 35.5 inches long. So it's a really short, compact rifle, but with a very long barrel. It also has quite an impressive air cylinder. Look at the length of that. And it's able to do this because it runs at an angle. The air cylinder runs at an angle and has the stock mounted on top of it. And this has been, I think this is a much better design than some of the modern Bullpup type air rifles that you see that mount the power source behind the trigger block. And I'm on about things like the Kral, the new Uragan Vixen, things like that, where the air cylinder, or the power plant, is mounted behind them, but they mount it straight behind it. And what this means is that because they mount it straight behind it, you have trouble with length of reach to the trigger, especially with the Kral, which has got a really awkward length of reach. But by angling it down, bringing it in at an angle, you can get a much longer cylinder in a shorter space. Pure geometry dictates that. So this has got a really long air cylinder for a Springer air rifle, and yet its reach length of pull is exactly the same as any other air rifle, and it gives it a nice compact design. And I don't know why nobody in the PCP world has copied this design by having your air cylinder at an angle coming off the breech with the stock mounted on top of it. It makes it a lovely thing to shoot. You have no trouble at all with eye relief on if you wanted to put a scope on a modern rifle. It's just a fantastic design. It was so far ahead of its time. It's unbelievable. Absolutely incredible. Beautiful rifle. So it's got a really heavy tapered 21-inch barrel. I think it's 21.5 inches actually. Tapered, heavy rifled barrel. This is a 177 caliber. Most of these were made in 177 caliber. Very few were in 2.2 and a couple were made in 2.5. It's got a really smart action as well. So the barrel lockup is this little latch here. So you pull this back like you would on a Webley and Scott revolver. So you hold the gun, pull that back, and then the rifle breaks. Now you'll notice that the trigger is mounted on the cocking arm. The actual trigger sear remains in place here. And then when you cock the rifle, as you break the barrel, it slides down the chamber here. So this bar pushes it back, and you'll notice that there are two holes here. Now what this does, this gives you variable power, because this screw is a stop that stops the piston going further back, and this rifle actually has two sears mounted on the front on the piston. So you can have it at a lower power, or by moving it further back you can press the spring more and put it on the front sear, and you give a higher power. And when you've done that, you just close it up, and that just flicks over and locks it in place. It's a fantastically simple and lovely action. Beautifully machined. You think this gun, this is like I say an early one, so this was probably made in about 1905, 1906, and yet the action still locks up beautifully. Everything works on it. The two power adjustments work really well on it, and it's because it's got such a long cylinder, it's a surprisingly powerful air rifle. And you think probably the most powerful air rifles at the time were giving about 8-9 foot-pounds, but were much longer than this. You know, thinking of the BSAs, the long toms, stuff like that, very long air rifles. This thing generated the same power in a really compact, short, manageable rifle. And it's got a lovely feel and centre of balance to it as well, because all the piston, the spring and everything is mounted to the rear of the rifle. And you've got this beautiful moulding here that acts as a hand support, and it's just incredibly good. Incredibly good. The other thing I like about this gun, it's the easiest gun I've ever had to change the mainspring or lubricate the washer, the piston washer, because at the back here, simple slot. You undo this screw. This is a replacement, by the way, that's not an original screw. Undo that screw, put a 2p coin in there or a big screwdriver, and it's got like a bayonet fitting on it. So you twist it, that comes out, and everything just slides out the back. Dead easy. There's almost no compression on the mainspring, very, very little. So it's so simple. And then when you've done that, you just push the piston back in, the mainspring, and slide that back in. It's so easy to change the mainspring on this, it's ridiculous. Fantastic design. Not only fantastic design to shoot it, but fantastic design to keep on top of the maintenance of them. Nice walnut. Really nice figured striped walnut. And again, it's a beautiful rifle. Really, really nice. Sighting on this particular early one, and this is an early one, it's got a two-piece pop-up rear sight. So you've got a fixed rear sight. You can drift it side to side, but it's got one grooved sight there. And then for longer ranges, it's got a higher one that just flips up. As you can see, it's higher than the other one. So that one's for closer ranges. That one's for further afield. Straightforward, fairly low bead sight on the front. Fantastic rifle. It's got an adjustable trigger. When you break this down, there's a little screw underneath that you can adjust the trigger sear, the actual sear itself, rather than the trigger, because like I say, the sear is separate from the trigger. And you can tell this is an early one because on the later rifles, and they didn't make very many at all, so when I say later rifles, I mean, you know, we're talking, I think, around about just over under 2000, so sort of 1500, sort of from the thousands up to 17 or 1800 serial numbers. You'll see a little hole here because they moved the sear adjustment, and they put a hole here so you can put a screwdriver through this bottom part of the cocking lever to adjust it. On the early ones like this one, you have to actually break the barrel open, and there's a little screw that sticks out the side of the sear that you adjust. So there it is. The Brittania Anglo Sure Shot air rifle. Absolutely beautiful rifle. I think they went up to about, I'm pretty sure they made up to about 3,500 of these, but they're very, very rare, purely because of their age. You know, made in they stopped making them in 1908. So it's a long, long time ago, but what a fantastic gun. You know, to think that they managed to get in a 35-inch rifle the same power that a long tom or one of the BSAs was delivering, and they were like, what, 43 inches long, I think. So it's a good 10 inches, it's a good foot shorter. This at 30 odd, it's a good foot shorter than most of the BSAs, and yet delivered exactly the same power. Really, really interesting rifle. This one's in really nice condition as well. It's got most of the blue in, a little bit of a brown patina forming on parts. Fantastic. Nice, like I say, nice walnut stock. It's got some tiger striping on it. Looks quite good. This thing shoots like a little dream. Really nice rifle to shoot. I must admit, I tend to shoot this just on its lower power settings, purely to not put any stress on that mechanism, because you've got to remember this gun is over 115, 116 years old. Still shoots beautifully. It's so easy to work on as well, and so well made. Everything's really slick, you know, just really nice. Lever mechanism, everything about it. Beautiful gun. There's the serial number stamped again. There it is, locked up again. Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful old gun. Years ahead of its time. Years ahead of its time. One of the very first bullpups. And I'll just show you how much better built it is than the gem. Right, so at the bottom I've got an old gem out of my collection. You can see, much cruder. You know, the underlever on these tends to rattle around a lot on them because they're pinned. Most of the parts are pinned rather than screwed. The triggers are very basic triggers on them. You can see how small the spring is on it as well, so the power was really low on a gem. Really not very powerful at all. Fairly crude open sights. So all in all, really, even though there is a sort of faint comparison in looks, I suppose, between the two, the Brittania is leagues ahead as regards build quality, design, power, accuracy. It's just a different world altogether to the Gem. As you can see as well, as is common on all of this era of British made air rifles, all the screws, everything's screwed, nothing's pinned, everything's screwed, and all the screws, the heads are all on the same side of the rifle. It's just a really nice gun. Got to say, it's probably heading towards being my favourite. Even though I like my Webleys, I like my Mark 3s, I like my Mark 2 service, this thing's a joy to shoot. And it's a joy to handle it as well, because it doesn't feel like an air rifle. You pick it up and it feels for all the world like a centerfire. It's just fantastic. They are very scarce though, that is the only thing with them. Finding one is quite difficult. Finding a nice one is quite difficult. And I dropped lucky with this one because this is in pretty good condition and it's a very early one. You know, 4.6, what was it, 4.63 it was, 4.62, pardon me.